In 2021, for the first time, the United States released 144,000 genetically modified mosquitoes into residential neighborhoods. Dozens of specially designed plastic boxes were placed in the yards of homes in the Florida Keys. Local mosquito control workers made one final check of these boxes. Residents gathered along the roadside, their eyes filled with anger and anxiety. They were all afraid that the workers would bring one of those boxes to their own homes. Over 300,000 Americans signed petitions and repeatedly wrote to the authorities in protest. But despite all of that, the project still moved forward. As soon as a cup of water was poured into the plastic box, it officially began operating. Researchers monitored it closely for 12 weeks. Every week, around 1,000 genetically modified mosquitoes steadily escaped into the outside world, spreading everywhere: bedrooms, schools, parks, and drains. After 3 years, they had released 8 million mosquitoes, and these insects had completely blended into human life. So why did they release mutant mosquitoes all across the Florida Keys? Honestly, I advise you not to believe anything you hear before this story reaches the end. This story is complicated, with more twists than you might expect. It involves government power, corporate interests, and the human right to edit nature itself. To understand why the Florida Keys became the first testing ground, we have to go back to Key West during 2009 and 2010. This was when dengue fever suddenly returned to Florida after being nearly absent for more than 70 years. Every year, between 100 and 400 million people around the world get dengue fever. Medicine calls it breakbone fever. When someone is infected, it can begin with a high fever, headache, pain behind the eyes, muscle pain, and joint pain. The feeling is almost as if someone is breaking every bone in your body. But when the illness becomes severe, the patient may experience bleeding, repeated vomiting, intense abdominal pain, extreme exhaustion, shock, and even death. And this disaster began with Aedes aegypti. They are an invasive species, and if you have watched some of our previous videos, you already know how dangerous they can be. Even though they make up only about 4% of the mosquitoes in the Keys, the problem is that they are the most terrifying species. This single mosquito can transmit dengue, Zika, chikungunya, and yellow fever. It lives so close to humans that it almost becomes part of the neighborhood. All it needs is a little standing water in a flower pot, a gutter, a plastic bucket, an old tire, or a bottle left in the backyard. In a hot, humid island region, with many seaside neighborhoods and a constant flow of tourists, the Florida Keys almost became the perfect environment for this invasive species to spread quickly, reproduce rapidly, and take over territory. Rajiv Vaidyanathan once said, "Aedes aegypti mosquitoes know how to dance. They hover around their target, waiting for a very brief moment to draw blood." Because of this quick biting behavior, one mosquito can bite several people inside the same home: a child, an elderly woman, a housekeeper, and then the cases begin to appear in clusters. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, this was a public health emergency, a real disaster that directly threatened the economy of this island tourist region. Of course, they could not ignore this urgent problem. They tried almost everything a modern mosquito control program could do. Planes and helicopters sprayed chemicals from above. Trucks drove through neighborhoods spraying pesticides. Workers went door to door looking for standing water, using larvicides like BT, setting traps, releasing fish that eat mosquito larvae, and urging residents to empty water from buckets, flower pots, old tires, and gutters. FKMCD also had more than 35 field inspectors dedicated to finding and treating mosquito breeding sites. Reuters once reported that the Florida Keys Mosquito Control Agency spent about $1 million a year just to fight this species. But unfortunately, even though these methods were very effective against other insects, they could not stop the spread of Aedes aegypti. All they could do was temporarily push mosquito numbers down. And if you think about it, continuing with the old approach was not ideal. The strongest tool was still spraying chemicals. But while it kills mosquitoes, it can also seep into the soil and water, and people may end up breathing it in as well. They had to find a method that was more effective and safer. So what do genetically modified mosquitoes have to do with all of this? Don't rush. We'll get to that in the next part. This idea came from Oxitec, which is now rebranding as Flytar and is owned by the global biotechnology company Intrexon. According to the company, it was founded in 2002, is based in Oxford, has more than 190 employees, research centers in the United Kingdom and Brazil, and has published more than 100 scientific papers. And yes, they really are creating genetically modified mosquitoes. Now, I'll try to explain exactly how it works. The process begins with Aedes aegypti mosquitoes in a laboratory. First come the eggs. Female mosquitoes lay eggs in a special room called the egg production area. That sounds reasonable enough. Inside each large cage, there are about 12,000 female mosquitoes, and they do their job. This is what the eggs look like when the females lay them. After that, scientists collect the eggs for research. Next, the eggs are lined up in a row, a very tiny row, because each mosquito egg is only about the size of a grain of fine salt. Then the most interesting part begins. Using microscopic needles, researchers inject a tiny drop of patented synthetic DNA into each egg. Just imagine how precise this work has to be. For 4 days after this procedure, Oxitec technicians care for the eggs and monitor the larvae as they hatch. At this stage, the females are separated from the males, and they do this by hand. You can probably see how it would be almost impossible to tell the sex of those tiny wriggling creatures just by looking at them. But there is one way. Scientists look at their size, because females are always larger than males. That is a typical form of sexual dimorphism in the insect world. Do you know why they choose male mosquitoes? It's simple. Male mosquitoes do not bite people. They do not suck blood, they do not transmit disease, and they do not need blood to reproduce. Male mosquitoes live only on flower nectar. The truly dangerous ones are the females because they need blood to nourish their eggs. Back to the process. The larvae that survive after being injected, as the company calls them, go through a whole series of tests to make sure the genetic modification has worked. The result is a mosquito known as OX5034. Genetically modified Aedes aegypti mosquitoes are mosquitoes that have been given a self-limiting gene. Scientists designed these mosquitoes so they would not bite people and would be male. Yes, the females carrying this gene simply do not survive. Basically, that is the idea. The scientists' plan is for genetically modified mosquitoes to mate with wild mosquitoes, spreading that gene through the population. Specifically, when Oxitec male mosquitoes mate with wild female Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, their offspring inherit the self-limiting gene. The female offspring, the ones capable of biting people and spreading disease, cannot survive to adulthood. The males, however, can live for a short time and continue carrying that trait. But wait, if a mosquito carries a lethal gene, how can it grow up and mate with wild females? The answer is simple. By modifying its genes, scientists also make sure the mosquitoes are fed an antidote called tetracycline during development. So each of these genetically modified mosquitoes will die in the larval stage only if you do not go out of your way to save it. One generation can grow up, reproduce, and pass the gene on. But in the wild, getting that antidote is impossible. So the mosquitoes die before reaching adulthood. But Oxitec did not stop at creating mosquitoes in the lab and releasing them by hand. The smarter part lies in how they turn this technology into an easy-to-deploy product, a just-add-water mosquito egg box. Instead of transporting millions of living adult mosquitoes fragile, hard to control, labor-intensive, and almost like moving a tiny swarm of insects through multiple transfer points, they only need to deliver boxes containing eggs to the target area. Once water is added, the eggs begin to hatch. From there, Oxitec male mosquitoes fly out, find wild female Aedes aegypti mosquitoes on their own, and mate with them. Australia's CSIRO also describes this technology as a way to produce non-biting male mosquitoes within a short period of time after water is added. But theory is easy to accept. Bringing genetically modified mosquitoes into a real neighborhood is a completely different story. In the Florida Keys, this project was made public. Along US 1, a light blue billboard once appeared with a message that basically said, "Our mosquito control project is taking off," as if this were just a gentle step forward for science. But the advertisement sparked intense controversy. The skeptics of Oxitec's genetically modified mosquitoes included local residents, doctors, scientists, and environmental activists. And honestly, it is hard to blame them. Just imagine that one day, the authorities in your area announce that they are going to release mosquitoes in your neighborhood. Yes, people were afraid of being bitten. Would these mosquitoes actually help fight disease, or would they create a new kind of outbreak? Most importantly, once the mosquitoes were released, they could not be taken back. In fact, this opposition was not new. Since 2011, when the project was first mentioned, many residents had feared that they were being used as test subjects. Some people signed petitions, some put up protest signs, others questioned officials at local meetings. In 2012, The Guardian reported that a petition opposing Oxitec's mosquito release plan, launched by a woman in Key West, had gathered nearly 90,000 signatures, and by 2016, that number had grown to more than 200,000. By 2020, opposition groups said the Mosquito Control Board had received more than 2,000 opposing comments from Florida residents. Natalie Kofler, a molecular biologist and bioethicist, once said, "The saddest thing is that the very people who will be most affected by both the benefits and the risks of this decision have the smallest voice in making those choices. And that is the real knot in this story." On the other side, the government, mosquito control agencies, and regulators said the project was not being carried out carelessly. In 2020, the EPA granted Oxitec an experimental use permit. After that, the state and local authorities also gave the green light, with monitoring and tracking procedures in place. Some residents agreed as well, because they were simply exhausted by mosquitoes and chemical spraying. Anyway, as you know, it still happened in 2021, just as we saw at the beginning. The night before Oxitec announced the launch of its project in the Florida Keys, downtown Key West was lit up like any other evening. Tourists filled the outdoor bars, music drifted from across the street, cocktail glasses were raised, and laughter floated through the sea breeze. If you were just a tourist passing through, you probably would not have realized that only a few miles away, one of the most controversial genetic experiments in America was about to begin. But local residents knew. Many of them did not see this as normal. Many still felt they had never truly been heard. One resident named Russo once asked a very direct question: why did they have the right to carry out an experiment in the Florida Keys? But the only people who seemed to care were those living in the same situation. The next morning, the project began. And the reality was not like the rumors spreading online. There were no helicopters scattering mosquitoes across the sky. There was no chaos. The actual release was much quieter. Just add water mosquito egg boxes were placed at selected sites. Technicians added water inside, then let the biological process unfold on its own. From there, genetically modified male Aedes aegypti mosquitoes hatched, flew away, found wild females, and mated with them. After the release, scientists monitored everything closely. They collected and analyzed more than 22,000 eggs from surveillance traps. The early results showed that the genetic mechanism had worked. Female mosquitoes carrying the self-limiting gene did not survive to adulthood, while males could continue carrying the gene for a short time. This gene lasted only about 2 to 3 months, enough for a few mosquito generations, before gradually disappearing. Mosquitoes carrying the gene were also found mostly within about 1,300 feet of the release sites. In other words, this technology was not designed to spread forever in the wild. For Oxitec and the agencies supporting the project, that was a sign of success. The males did not bite people, the self-limiting gene worked, and the project was allowed and monitored by the EPA and other relevant agencies. But for the opposition, those results were still not enough to erase the feeling of unfairness. They kept asking, who controls the data? Who is responsible if there are long-term impacts? And why must the community accept the risk before it truly trusts the project? After the first 144,000 mosquitoes, the scale continued to grow. In 2022, the number reached the millions. In 2023, millions more were released. The EPA even once expanded the experimental permit area to include California, although that did not mean the full maximum number allowed was actually released. By the summer of 2024, the Oxitec mosquito release phase in the Florida Keys had ended. Do you know why the government agreed to this project in Florida so easily? There may have been other special reasons, but there was one thing they felt sure about. The chances of success were very high. That is because Florida was not the first place in the world to use genetically modified mosquito technology. Before those boxes appeared in the Florida Keys, Oxitec had already spent more than a decade testing it in other places. The Cayman Islands were one of the first places where Oxitec released genetically modified mosquitoes into a real environment. Starting in 2009, the company released genetically modified male Aedes aegypti mosquitoes there. According to The Guardian, the Cayman trial was said to have reduced the number of Aedes aegypti mosquitoes in the target area by about 75%. A later study in close neglected tropical diseases also repeated the 2010 result. Continuous releases of male OX513, a mosquitoes led to about an 80% reduction in the target mosquito population. Cayman was where Oxitec first proved the idea. Genetically modified male mosquitoes could not only survive in the wild, but also find wild females, mate with them, and reduce the population of disease-carrying mosquitoes. Even so, the project was still controversial. Some bioethics researchers argued that the community consultation process in Cayman was not deep enough and did not make residents feel truly involved. After Cayman, Brazil became the place that produced numbers the world could not ignore. In Itaberaba, a suburb of Juazeiro in the state of Bahia, Oxitec released male OX513, a mosquitoes continuously for more than a year. The published results were striking. The Aedes aegypti population fell by 95% based on adult mosquito traps and by 81% based on egg traps, compared with an area where no mosquitoes were released. Just imagine a neighborhood once full of dengue-carrying mosquitoes, and then after the campaign, the target mosquito population dropped to only a tiny fraction of what it had been. That is why this technology began to be seen as a serious tool, not just an idea in a laboratory. Panama is also mentioned among the international trials that came before Florida. Some scientific and media summaries say that in Brazil, Panama, and the Cayman Islands, this technology could sharply reduce Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, in some cases by more than 90%. However, to be very precise, Brazil and Cayman are the two places with public data that are easier to verify. After that, Brazil went even further. In Indaiatuba, Sao Paulo, the newer generation of friendly Aedes was deployed for 11 months in densely populated urban neighborhoods, with Oxitec reporting reductions of up to 96%. By 2021, the Just Add Water box technology began to be commercialized in Brazil. Place the box, add water, wait about 10 days, and then non-biting male mosquitoes fly out to do their job. Back to Florida. The story in the Florida Keys did not end when Oxitec's mosquito release phase stopped in the summer of 2024. If you think that after 3 years of controversy, this place simply went back to the old way of controlling mosquitoes, it did not. The Florida Keys moved into another project. The main target was still Aedes aegypti. The method still involved releasing non-biting male mosquitoes, but this time it was not done through genetic modification. Starting in June 2025, the Florida Keys Mosquito Control District began a small project releasing male Aedes aegypti mosquitoes carrying Wolbachia bacteria in 3 areas, each about 20 acres wide. Think of it simply like this. Instead of using a self-limiting gene like Oxitec, this time they used a type of bacteria to disrupt the mosquito's ability to reproduce. The male mosquitoes carrying Wolbachia do not bite people. They do not fly out to suck blood. Their job is to find local female Aedes aegypti mosquitoes and mate with them. But after that mating, the eggs cannot develop into a healthy new generation. Gradually, the mosquito population in the test area may decline. It sounds a bit like Oxitec, right? But the difference is very important. Oxitec uses a gene, while Wolbachia uses bacteria. Oxitec causes female offspring to die before reaching adulthood. Wolbachia causes reproduction to fail from the very beginning. One is genetic technology, the other is microbial technology. But both have the same goal, using Aedes aegypti itself to control Aedes aegypti. And this is what really matters. And the Florida Keys are not just testing one method. They are testing a new direction in disease control. This mosquito is becoming resistant to conventional methods, while it can still spread dengue, Zika, and yellow fever. So you see, this fight is no longer as simple as spraying more chemicals, setting more traps, or waiting for residents to empty all the standing water behind their homes. After Oxitec came Wolbachia. After genes came bacteria. After chemical sprays came increasingly sophisticated biotechnology. The Florida Keys are becoming a kind of outdoor testing ground for the future of mosquito control, where humans are no longer just trying to kill mosquitoes from the outside, but are beginning to intervene directly in their life cycle. But wait, if humans are now using genes, bacteria, and biotechnology to control mosquitoes, and mosquitoes are really that dangerous, why don't we just wipe them off the face of the earth? At first, the question sounds simple: just eliminate the species. After all, Humans have already driven many species to extinction throughout history, and mosquitoes are among the deadliest animals in human history, especially because of malaria. But the problem is that the world does not have just one kind of mosquito. There are about 3,500 mosquito species, and only a small fraction of them actually bite humans or transmit dangerous diseases. So when we say get rid of mosquitoes, which ones are we talking about? Aedes aegypti? Malaria-carrying Anopheles mosquitoes? Or the entire mosquito family? This is where the story becomes much more complicated. Mosquitoes are also food for bats, birds, frogs, fish, dragonflies, and many other small animals. It's true that not many species rely exclusively on mosquitoes for survival, but mosquitoes are still an abundant, easy-to-catch food source that appears in huge numbers during certain seasons. If they suddenly disappeared, ecosystems might not collapse overnight, but they would almost certainly be disrupted, at least in the short term. You see, even when it comes to one of the most hated creatures on Earth, the answer is not as simple as wipe them out. And the more scientists study mosquitoes, the more surprising discoveries they make. Some research suggests that the bacteria living on human skin can influence how attractive we are to mosquitoes. In other words, it may not be just your body odor that makes mosquitoes choose you over the person sitting next to you. The ecosystem of bacteria on your skin may play a role as well. One experiment even found that Victoria's Secret bombshell perfume could repel mosquitoes for more than 2 hours. That's surprising, because many people assume floral scents would attract them. Meanwhile, in Sri Lanka, a newspaper once printed an edition using ink mixed with citronella oil during National Dengue Prevention Week. The result? Every copy sold out before 10 a.m., and sales increased by about 30%. All of these examples show that the fight against mosquitoes is not confined to the laboratory. It reaches human skin, the scents we wear, the morning newspaper, backyard gardens, and even the biological decisions that could shape the future of nature itself. In conclusion, the story of the Florida Keys is not just about releasing genetically modified mosquitoes. It is a much bigger question about how humans face disease, technology, and nature. When mosquitoes become a threat, should we use genes, bacteria, and biology to control them? Or does every intervention open the door to a new risk? What do you think? Is this a necessary step to protect human lives, or is it a dangerous line to cross? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy real stories about nature, science, and controversial human decisions, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.